Okay, hi, I'm David. I have a daily cold water practice, and from time to time, I like to review the medical research and see if it has anything new to offer my practice. So, this is the seventh part of looking at a paper called Health Effects of Voluntary Exposure to Cold Water, a continuing subject of debate. Okay, so here we are on a section that starts looking in detail at cold water immersions. The first thing that really jumps out here is the difference between heat conductance in skin. It's about 3.34 times greater in water compared to air. But the precise figure is also governed by the thickness of your skin. I think that one of the telling things about that statistic is the difference between full body immersion into cold water as opposed to cold showers, because obviously the temperature impact on your skin is going to be much less in the flow of a shower. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. The experience of a cold shower and a full cold water immersion are going to be different. We're then going on to looking at different autonomic responses, so kind of nervous system really responses. We're going to ignore the diving response because I'm talking about my kind of meditative style of cold plunge, and the diving response doesn't really apply. But the second response talked about cold shock response very much does apply. So we're going to focus on looking at that. The cold shock response is a series of reflexes. As you enter into the cold water, your body automatically will start doing certain physiological activities in an attempt to keep you warm. It's a very toxic environment, cold water, and the really important thing to look at is that the collision, the assault on your autonomic nervous system and the way it responds is believed to be the reason why there is such a high rate of cardiac arrhythmias, heart attacks among healthy individuals when immersing in cold water. So, this stuff can be really dangerous, and we really need to bear that in mind. And so, one of the first things to talk about on the cold shock response is the breathing reactions that untrained people will typically have when they immerse into cold water. The initial thing is the gasp, which is an uncontrolled reflex, and you can't breathe in a regulated fashion at that point. It's kind of a physiological sign that you're entering into a high stress state. And as the gasp subsides, it's taken over by a hyperventilation, by that kind of breathing style that you'll see of people as they enter into ice cold water when they haven't prepared properly for it. And also, this then leads on to disorientation and a loss of consciousness. So yeah, once again, super dangerous environment, especially when we haven't prepared ourselves in ways that control these physiological reactions of the cold shock response. So going through this list in the other responses that we get when we're regularly immersing ourselves into cold water. The first one on this list is an improvement in cardiovascular disease, CVD. The markers for risk factors when people that regularly immerse in cold water are studied, they show lower risk factor markers, which is a good thing, right? Health disease is one of the biggest killers of the species. So yeah, that's cool. So then mentions the improved CIVD response. I talked about this in the previous video, the vasoconstriction, but then the recovery with the vasodilation and how that improves with regular cold water immersions, and how important that is for the regulation of temperature in our extremities, so like our hands and our feet. The next one talks about the shift in fat metabolism. I believe this is going to refer to the white fat decreasing and the brown fat increasing or becoming more active. Bit controversial, that one. Talked about again in the next one, which is the increased potentiation of non-shivering heat production. So I talked about this before in another video. This is a process where the body metabolizes this brown adipose tissue to generate more heat when we're in the cold and to allow us to be more comfortable and stay longer in the cold water. And similarly, the reduced thermoregulatory threshold for cold thermogenesis, which basically means that it kicks in sooner. And then just the general points about habituation, which is to get used to this thermal sensation, so the sensation of the cold and our comfort level in the cold. And also, this is another massive part of my practice, habituation in the respiratory response. So again, this ties into the cold shock response to a degree, but also beyond that as well. Just having a really calm, controlled breathing style